Good afternoon. This is a GNC, that's the General Naturopathic Council webinar with Peter Jackson Main. Delighted to have you here, Peter, and it's about your latest book called Natural Healing. So I'll first just introduce you for anybody who doesn't know you, and I'm sure that's not many at all. Peter Jackson Main began his inquiry into natural healing soon after leaving Cambridge University in the mid-1970s, before finding the College of Herbs and Natural Healing and training in herbal medicine and iridology. Peter had already trained in reflexology, massage, aromatherapy, polarity therapy, and several other modalities. He was a co-founder and long-serving chairman of the Association of Master Herbalists. He runs the Natural Center and has been the chair and the owner of that for 33 years. And he also has a clinic in London. He's currently senior lecturer and course director for herbal medicine, academic director, and head of research at the College of Naturopathic Medicine, CNM. So, Peter, that's a very impressive CV. Maybe tell us a little bit about the other books that you've written, because you are a prolific author, and why you felt that this one needed to be written.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Gillian. Just want to say that you have me down as the chair of my own company. It's not quite
Oh,
that grand.
sorry.
I'm a partner with my wife, Angie.
Okay.
We started the business, yeah, in 1993. Yeah, so it's been remarkably successful. I'm sort of the outward facing part of it. I do most of the consulting. She is working in the background with the dispensary particularly and other organizational aspects. So it's very much a team effort. I just want to put that in. She has a acknowledgement in all my books because she's such an important force in my life.
Of course.
So yeah, my other books. My first book ever was published in 2004, and it was called Practical Iridology, and it was hugely successful. But for fast forward 19, 20 years, I sort of thought, well, it's an old book now. I'd do it a little bit differently if I were to do it again. And so I contacted Aon and said, would you be interested in a rewrite? And they fantastically snapped it up immediately. And so I then found myself. And when I say a rewrite, it was pretty much a full rewrite, actually. I thought I was just going to be able to add a few bits and edit a few bits, but it didn't work out like that. It was a complete reimagining of the whole thing. So that's Practical Iridology, which was published in, let me see if I can get this correctly. I know it's only 2 years ago. It's like 2023, the revised expanded edition. It was followed, and again, Aon said, "Have you got anything else?" And I said, "Well, actually, I do have to have this other script that I'm part way through, which is about the non-physical aspects of iridology." The first one was really about practical iridology, was about the kind of classical iridology model, using it for naturopathic diagnostics. But then I thought, well, a lot of people are interested now in more sort of energetic, non-physical personality, psychology, etc. Not that I particularly like the word psychology. It's sort of a bit too reminiscent of things that I don't really want anything to do with. But it's using, to the extent that the energetic systems of humoral medicine, whether it be Chinese or Ayurvedic or even the Greco-Roman traditions, they don't make a clear distinction between the body and the mind and the emotions, etc. It's all one big blob. And so I wanted to bring that out in terms of iridology and how I work with iridology to help people to understand themselves better, help people to understand the emotional dimensions of their issues. So that book came out in 2024 and was called The Mind's Eye. Um, and then this one, Natural Healing, which this is the book I've always wanted to write. I mean, you asked me to sort of say, why did I write it? And in the first place, I guess it's for my patients. and this in a very practical way. I spend so much of my time on email or on the phone answering questions from patients when I give them treatment programs and engaged in discussions, which is always nice to do, but it's very time consuming when you're doing it on a one-to-one basis. And I thought it would be nice to write something, it's all in here, so that I didn't, so I could actually say, look, if you want a deeper dive into what I do, I've written it. So, so please buy it. And so a lot of the text sort of came out of the need for expanding on the advice that we would normally give in naturopathic or natural healing interventions. And a lot of commentary, a lot of background information about what naturopathy is, how do we frame that whole endeavor, what's the difference between natural medicine and conventional, or I call it standard medicine, and a few discussions around that. And I thought actually there's nothing like it in the marketplace. There are a few books which are sort of very um, kind of information dense in terms of this, what supplements you should take for what problems and all the rest of it. This is not a how to do medicine book. This is a book that describes what it means to commit to natural medicine as a life path, really, which is what I've done since 1977 when I met my first natural healer, and that meeting is described in the book as well. And
Could you just mention the name of that first
yeah, that was
natural?
Farida Sharan, and she's still a good friend of mine on social media, so she's still around, and she's written her own books, of course. And but it was that meeting which I sort of arrived at randomly and by chance, as one does. Turned out to be probably the most important thing, bar meeting my wife, that happened to me in my life, because it set me on that path which I've really loyally followed ever since. To sometimes some might say to the nth degree. There are some things discussed in the book which are kind of my own experiences with.
Yes, yes, you talk about your hip and how wonderfully you've managed to throw your stick into the corner. Is that anything you want to just mention? Is that an example of the nothing is incurable model
Yeah,
that you
definitely.
introduce here?
Yeah, that I mean that does feature. It's one of the later chapters, and
Mhm.
the foregoing chapters, which are all about things like detoxification and exercise and sleep and food, are sort of the how-to bits, the protocols and things that people might need to know. But then I sort of break off into discussing my own sort of personal experiences, and this is a big one for me. I mean, I guess it kind of came about after another. I've had a series of accidents. It's an interesting one, that, because some people might say you're a bit accident prone, aren't you? I have been, and I think in a way, on a higher level, if you can call it that, I've attracted things into my life from which I will learn, and I've learned from all my accidents. And I've treated them naturally, which is not.
That's very inspiring. The car accident that
I,
you
I
mentioned,
offer a note of
incredible.
caution. I offer a note of caution though, Gillian, because I think I've done things that, if I had my time again, I might have actually been a lit.
The car accident with the broken bones, I think
Uh,
somebody else might have
well,
gone straight to
most people
hospital.
would have gone to the hospital. It was an interesting thing actually that happened at the time, because this was in 1994.
Mhm.
And at the time, the NHS was in a bit of a pickle. Well, no news there. Same old, same old. And it was, there were frequent news stories about people being left in corridors on trolleys,
Mhm.
because there just wasn't enough capacity and not enough staff to look after them. And I just thought that's the last thing I want to happen. I was on my way to see Dr. Schultz lecture,
Yeah.
to a workshop that he was giving for postgrads, for trained
Mhm.
practitioners. And I was so super excited about being there that the worst thing imaginable would be for the whole thing to collapse at that point, and for me to end up on a hospital trolley awaiting the behest of some doctor or other, when
Yeah.
I knew from what Schultz had said about his own ministry in Los Angeles that he could probably do much, much better.
Yeah.
Many of the, and so I landed on him. The story's told in the book, of course.
Yeah, it's an amazing
Which was,
story.
which was
Yes.
immensely arrogant of me to do that. He didn't really know me that well, and I just decided that you're my doctor, I'm going to see you.
Hmm.
He was very impressive, though, as I explained. He didn't just say, "All right, yeah, we'll patch you up." He was very careful. He took my blood pressure at frequent intervals to make sure I had no internal injuries that might have resulted in shock. And he said in his own write-up of the event, which appears in his book that he wrote shortly afterwards called Cures from the Last Chance Clinic.
Oh,
And he
wow.
said, I was within a hair's breadth of sending this one back to hospital, but
Oh,
he didn't do it. And it had a very, very positive and beneficial outcome, not just for me, but for all the students sitting or standing around my bed watching him work with me. They had the opportunity to watch something, observe something firsthand that not many people see, which is how a natural doctor would treat and assess somebody who's just been through a fairly major accident.
yeah.
I have to say that my limbs weren't hanging off or anything like that.
No, no, but
They were
it,
superficial wounds.
yeah, yeah.
It wasn't, none of it was life-threatening, but it was instructive. Yeah.
Mm, mm. You have an interesting approach to supplements as well, and do mention, I think, one of your um, healer colleagues who pronounced them as dead. Do you remember that particular
That was
section?
the
Now,
that was
that doesn't apply obviously to the herbs. So, how would you distinguish between the sort of nutraceuticals and the herbs? I mean, how are we to understand that difference?
it's okay. And I'll see if I can give a simple answer to
Mm,
what could be quite a complex question.
mm,
It's not that I'm against supplements. I'm not for or against anything, really. I do what works for me, and I do it because I have an ethic, which is I think of it in terms of the natural healing ethic. It's not just a practice; it's a whole philosophy. Um, and it does very much come out of in the early part of the book. I discuss my main teacher and antecedent, Dr. Schultz, and some of the things that he said about natural healing. One of which was that it's necessary to install the natural healing filter, by which he meant how are you going to, out of all the things out there masquerading or promoting themselves as natural products, how are you going to make up your mind whether that's actually something that you should be taking notice of, or whether you should be questioning it? And I do question quite a lot when I hear the word natural. I do immediately start. I mean, natural progesterone, right? For example,
yeah.
people go
Mm,
on about, for menopausal problems. I'm like, it's not really natural, not really.
yeah.
It might
No.
have once come from a natural source. It might have come from, I don't know, wild yam or something like that. But by the time it gets into that package or that blister pack or whatever, it's not natural. And I think you could argue there's nothing that's not natural in the world. I mean, drugs are made of something that has to occur
Yeah.
naturally, even if it is petrochemicals and stuff that they have to really process. And of course, it's the processing really. Now, the other thing I have sort of thought I have around nutraceuticals, as you call them, is that there are in many cases targeted supplements that have a particular role in supplementing something that's perceived to be missing. There's a discussion in the book about magnesium, for example, and I sort of raise a couple of questions about that. One of which is, well, actually, magnesium is not in short supply in a good healthy diet. Anything green is loaded with the stuff. So why are we running short of magnesium? Why is there this perceived need for more magnesium? And of course, the answer is that, and it does depend a little bit on your individual constitution. We're also stressed out that we're using vast quantities of magnesium. And the question that I put is, well, wouldn't it be a good idea to treat the stress rather than just putting the magnesium band-aid on it, if you like? There's no hormone, neurotransmitter, nutrient that your body can't manufacture. Even things that they said, you would have to supplement, like vitamin
Even
B.
even vitamin C.
And vitamin C. Well, I mean, yeah, but when I say that, I mean I'm not necessarily saying your body will manufacture every nutrient, but it manufactures it in the sense that if you put stuff in you, your body will do the right thing with it.
It
Okay.
will
So,
synthesize.
in other
Yeah.
words, and again, vitamin C is not in short supply. I think it's completely destroyed in cooking, for example. So you might have lots of vitamin C in Brussels sprouts, but that doesn't mean to say your Christmas dinner is going to be loaded with the stuff because they've been boiled to within an inch of their lives. But I think that if we take on board I mean, I do rate nutritional theory very highly, by the way. But for me, and I'm thinking at various points in my life, I've actually thought maybe I should train in nutrition just to understand it a little bit better. But for me, nutrition would be the job of it, if you like, and I this is what I do in my own practice because all herbalists have to be nutritionists to some extent. So I do use nutrition, but I'm not a nutritionist. I don't have a diploma. But I think that what I would do with nutrition is to work very closely with what people were actually eating and fulfill that Hippocratic maxim, let thy food be thy medicine.
Mm. And
Uh,
another aspect of what is generally considered to be complementary medicine is a lot of testing. And that doesn't come up so much in your book. And I'm just wondering
okay.
how that fits in, whether you feel that within the naturopathy or the nature cure approach, whether the amount of testing done nowadays is really necessary or.
That's a matter of training.
Mhm.
There are two kind of separate answers to that. One answer, which I'll deal with first, is that the book was never intended as a manual for practitioners.
Mhm.
Um, it can be a manual for practitioners if you want to, find it, you're interested in downloading that whole kind of natural healing thing, then I'm very happy for you and happy that I've written it. But that wasn't really what it was written for. And I do explain that this is not a compendium of how to treat every single problem that's out there. So the testing thing wasn't really relevant to write about in that context. But I will say that with regard to testing, both regular medical testing that you might be able to get on the NHS and functional medicine testing, I do both. If I can find a test that the NHS will do, then for simple cost efficiency, I will ask patients to go and have those tests. So if I'm treating somebody for hypothyroidism, for example, yes, I take notice of their results, even though they're very truncated. They're not full thyroid screens by any means, but they perform a function. They let me know that the basic things are within the correct parameters. So I will use that data for sure.
But the attitudes or the sort of motto that underlies the book and I believe your own website, simplicity, responsibility, and change, is
Yeah,
lovely and is encouraging because a lot of what you know modern approaches to complementary medicine sort of espouse is huge complexity of the
mm,
approach as well in some ways. I'm sure you
yeah.
would admit that. And this word
I do,
simplicity
yeah.
with which you begin is very, very encouraging.
Mm. Yeah, it's an important concept because I think the other thing about it is that, and hopefully this does come through in the book to some extent as well, is that I think my starting point working with anybody is you know yourself much better than I do. So, what do you think? I quite
Mm.
often bounce this back to people. What do you think? What do you think you should do? And they asking me all these questions by email, and I'm saying, well,
Yeah, yeah.
what do you think? And then you get the answer, and very often it's the right answer.
Like
It's
Dr. William Osler always said, speak to the patient long enough and he'll give you the
absolutely.
diagnosis.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Most patients have an intuitive sense, even if they're hiding it from themselves, of what's really wrong, and what their problem is and where it comes from. And I never discount that. In terms of testing, I will say that functional medicine testing, for example, because I am registered with Geneva Diagnostics, and I
Mhm.
do use it. And occasionally patients ask me, and I say, "Well, I can refer you to a test. There's a cost involvement, but I'm happy to do it." The ones I most often use are the GI effects, the thyroid total screen, and the adrenal stress.
Yeah.
I kind of those are the ones that I return to again and again, and I do find them useful. But I also find, and this is this is a point that I'd really like to make in favor of natural healing. I am a traditional medicine practitioner. And if you know your traditional medicine and you're able to use it, not just for treating, but diagnosis, then you will find that you don't really need as much of that testing as you may think.
Well,
I'm
that's what
quite
I was
good.
wondering. I mean, genetics, for example, has become a huge industry, hasn't it?
Mhm.
Genetic testing. And I'm wondering the extent to which you feel that that's necessary, or whether it's just a nice corollary to, for
Well,
example, the fantastic iridological work that you do, or how
I
that
think
fits.
I'm very interested at some point in doing a research program that would match up iridological findings with
Mhm.
genetic testing.
That would be superb, wouldn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, there are a few sort of ethical problems with it which I haven't resolved yet, and there's also a massive time problem.
Yeah.
Is probably the main thing I have to resolve. But I do feel it would be a useful exercise, and preliminary investigations show that, in fact, iridology is extremely good at second guessing what you might get out of a genetic test.
Isn't that amazing? That would be
Mm.
really, really unique.
Yeah.
You do mention in the book that defensive living is demanding but highly necessary. That's a very unusual term. Could you maybe explain what you mean by that?
Yeah, I made it up.
Oh,
I made it up, defensive living. And I think I put it somewhere in the book. I say, that it is necessary to guard very heavily the portals through which unwanted um, uh, elements may enter our systems. And I think that's psychologically as well, in a way, we
the
can hear.
portals, that's fascinating. You say it involves hypervigilance in terms of the decisions we make about our exposure to a wide range of possible toxins.
Right.
But you're talking about the psychological aspect of things
I,
as well.
I,
It
I'm
makes a
just,
lot of sense.
I'm extending it into that as well. Yes. And that's why I don't watch mainstream news anymore.
Mm, mm.
And I think that appears in the book somewhere as well. I call it
It
the
does. It
hell
poisons our minds. Yeah, yeah. Okay.
because I think that it destabilizes people and it keeps them in the fear space. And I don't think healing is can take place in that context. I think we need to be in the heart space. We need to be in joy, in love, and positivity to heal. And so at the moment, it actually happened during the pandemic. I just suddenly said, well, it's a, it was interesting. I was a little bit, I probably shouldn't admit to this, just to show folks that I really am human. I was kind of a bit addicted to one of the TV soaps, and they ran out of episodes during the pandemic. And I thought, well, that's it then. They can't even be bothered to provide my entertainment for me. I'm not going to watch it, and I haven't. We gave up our license. We just do. I have an account with Netflix and Prime. If I want to be entertained, there's quite enough there if I feel like it. And I don't often because I don't have much time actually. And actually, not watching television has actually liberated a huge amount of time in my life
Yeah.
that I then use very productively, I feel, for writing and that sort of thing.
Thank you. Yes, you do go into a huge spectrum of wellness in the book and talk about everything from sort of body work to the herbal teas that you prescribe to the more spiritual aspects of looking after oneself. So it's amazing that you've managed to fit all that into this work. It's very nice as well that there are the actual prescriptions there in some cases of teas that we can. Presumably, you wouldn't recommend that people actually put these together themselves from their local health food shop. They should ideally order them from your dispensary, wouldn't you say? In the right
I think
proportions. I mean,
yeah,
that makes a
actually,
difference, doesn't it?
yeah, it does make a difference to have them in the right proportions. Yeah. I mean, I wanted to get a little bit of herbs in there because I just love herbs so much. And I thought,
Mhm.
it's a good opportunity. I think the two teas, the Serenity tea,
Yeah.
which we use a lot, and the
Mhm.
detox tea are the main ones. We are actually going to sell them on our website. I've done a
Uh-huh.
little bit of research that suggests that we can get these through the legislation on the basis that they're beverages. So
Awesome. Yeah.
rather than herbal remedies, we might have to change some of the advice that we give out with them. But
Mhm.
I am very keen. I'm not. I didn't write the book to sell my stuff. I
No, no, but
don't mind. I
it's
don't
lovely to know
mind it.
that it's available. This will help people to
Yeah,
understand where to reach
yeah,
out to. Yeah.
absolutely. But a lot of herbalists, a lot of my students, our students at CNM, have bought the book,
Mhm.
and I mean, some of these formulae are in there their class notes anyway.
Mhm.
But I did want something in there for them and something in there for people who know a little bit about herbs and who I think that information might be meaningful to. And I think
Mhm.
also I haven't done anything that I think would be a real problem if some random person who didn't know very much decided to go and experiment. I don't think you
No,
can go far wrong with it.
no, not at all. No. And you have some interesting approaches to liver flushes and gallbladder flushes and kidney and so on. You emphasize not going about it too brutally, I think, to put it,
Yeah,
perhaps incorrectly, but I think this is
no,
people.
I think it's
Yeah.
it is a good choice of word.
Mhm.
I have seen people brutalized through liver flushing and those
You
kind
mentioned
of
that. Yes, yes.
especially people who haven't, they've usually done it on their own without any guidance,
Mhm.
which I don't recommend actually.
Mhm.
Mm. And
And
so, no, the liver flush was probably the first piece of cleansing and detoxification that I ever did under
mhm.
his um, care. And at the time, I remember I didn't even have, I was too poor to afford a blender. It was either go and see Farida and have my session or buy a blender, but it couldn't be both. So what happened was that I found myself sort of mixing all the ingredients up with a fork, nearly throwing up once I tried to swallow the stuff, but kind of persevered and eventually got a blender, made it much better. But these are food cures as well. You know, if you read the liver flush, it's got lemon juice, apple juice, olive oil, garlic, ginger,
it's all
stuff.
doable, isn't it?
Yeah, it's all exactly.
Without being too expensive. And the kidney
Yeah,
flush as well is a
even
lovely one
simpler.
you describe.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I think it's people that, and the kidney flush is an interesting one because I make the point that when first year students at CNM in herbal medicine, they have to do an assignment, which is to do a detox on themselves and write it up.
Mhm.
And some of them for reasons of both maybe, expediency and ease of doing, because they all have to do it around Christmas time. Not really the best time to do a detox just before
Oh, not
Christmas.
really. Yeah.
Afterwards, maybe, but unfortunately, it's due in on the 31st of December, so they have to sort of engage with something. So a lot of them choose the easy option, which is the kidney flush. It's just lemon juice and a bit of cayenne tincture or pepper in the morning, and maybe a kidney bladder tea if they feel like it. And I'm always amazed with something that simple. Do it for 2 weeks. Just take that drink, the juice of a whole lemon in a full glass of water, 10 drops or a pinch of cayenne pepper, 10 drops of tincture or pinch of cayenne pepper, and just keep notes, keep a diary, which was what they have to do, and make your observations and find out in that 2 weeks of doing something really, really simple, how powerful that can be. And this is why why I keep reiterating this is not, it doesn't have to be a big, complicated deal to work on your health. If you think you're going to swallow, a bunch of lemons with cayenne for 2 weeks and it's going to sort all of your health problems out, you're probably not being realistic. I say to people that detoxing is for life, not just for Christmas, which
Mhm.
means that you don't just do it once, you repeat it. But it's part of the kit, if you like, the tools that I use to keep myself well.
Absolutely. And you've got a lovely natural healing implementation template. Maybe you could just describe a little bit more about that. I haven't sort of
Which one are you?
got that on screen, but you're talking about what are you currently doing that helps? What are you currently
Oh,
doing that
yeah,
hinders? What do you need to put in place to improve? And then you're very helpfully giving the various chapters to look at if that seems to be your
that's
particular
right.
difficulty
Yeah,
in those
I think it's
categories.
just that I'm keen to make the information as practical as possible
Yeah,
and to get people working with it. And so that the natural healing implementation table was really a sort of do it yourself self-assessment, and I think that that's where it starts really. And it's like a reflective cycle. Identify what you think you need, go about sorting that out, and then have a bit of a reflection on how.
one could almost extend that into a what's called MyMop that's often used at colleges when training students, isn't it?
And we're not allowed to do it anymore. Do you know that MyMop have made it? No, we've had to expunge all of that from
I
our.
didn't know that.
Yeah.
Oh, so this could be used as an alternative, and you could just
Well,
expand it,
yes,
right?
exactly, exactly. Well, the MyMop sort of measure medical outcome profile, I
Mhm,
think it
mhm.
stands for. Yeah, they did decide it got bought up by another company who was keen to protect what it called its intellectual property, and so we're not allowed to use it unless we pay them. So, well, I don't. I'm not paying. I'm not paying.
Alternatives, aren't there?
I
Alternatives
can
can be
just make my own
devised.
fine. But it's yeah, I think it's just useful to put the tools of not just how to help yourself, but how to evaluate your need for help.
Yeah.
So I think there's a bit. I don't know whether it's that one or another one where I've actually said, like, if you've got, say, gastrointestinal problems or stress or whatever, then these are the kind of detox suggestions that are most appropriate for you. Something
Yes.
like that.
Yes.
I think what you're referring to is something a bit different, where I'm asking people to evaluate within I mean, the whole thing is actually based on, I say this quite early on in the book as well, the idea of the six non-naturals.
Detoxification, food and drink, ambient air, movement and rest. Are those are the six, aren't they? I think perturbations of mind and
Perturbations
spirit,
of mind and
and
spirit.
creating the healing space. Yeah,
No, that's not one of the six non-naturals, actually. It's
that's not. Okay.
ambient air, food and drink, sleep and wakefulness, movement and rest, perturbations of mind and spirit, and the evacuation of superfluities,
Okay. Makes sense.
elimination and
Yeah.
retention. So those are and the book, the main part of the book is a discussion of those. This is the six non-naturals is a concept that comes up to us from Greco-Roman and Middle Eastern medicine, Tib medicine as well. They have a similar concept, and it's called non-naturals because you know when we talk about the constitution of the individual, that's a given. It's what you handed at birth, and you can't really do anything about it. Your genetics, if you want. But the non-naturals are the things you can do something about. These are the things you can actually change in your life, and you have the power to manage them. And so each of the non-naturals effectively gets a chapter. Well, detox gets two because I think that's super important at the moment, and offers a rationale for why and how we can start to look after ourselves with regard to this particular issue, whether it be, sleeping or exercising or eating, etc. Um, and also, I think, yeah, offering perspective that we don't often really think about, or at least some of us do if we're professionals, obviously, but a lot of people don't really think about, i.e., well, it's just like take something very, very simple like filtering your water. Um, I can understand why, and I think there's a discussion about this as well. We turn a tap on and out comes water. Whoa, the benefits of civilization, and then you get to know what's actually in that water, and
All
you
right.
start to think, well, oh, yeah, I like that someone's preventing me from trekking to the water hole 3 times a day, but I'm not necessarily liking what they're delivering. And so, we need to think about that. This is defensive living, really, as well. This is how we don't have any option but to breathe the air that's out there. But are there things we can do that will improve that for us and improve some of the risk factors if we happen to live in polluted areas? How can we actually offset that in some way? So this is why I think it's bringing the whole six non-natural thing. I mean, who in the in the ninth century was thinking about air quality in the way that we are
Absolutely.
today?
That we have to now.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
And what about, I mean, I know this is a big topic, and it's really perhaps not fair to sort of launch into it, but one does get the impression from reading this that plant-based diets are a preference rather than the huge emphasis given nowadays, even in the naturopathic slash, complementary field, to ketogenic,
Mm.
paleo ketogenic diets. Does eating meat fall into the defensive living sort of category?
Well,
One has to think hard about it, or
I think everything you eat, you should submit to the natural healing filter.
okay.
And I came from, my teachers were mainly vegan. in in the early days.
Yeah.
Not all of them, but at least vegetarian, and in Dr. Schultz's case, vegan. And I was vegan for many years, and it did me a lot of good. I mean, it got rid of my asthma and my eczema and
Well,
my hay fever,
mm, mm,
which I'd sort of had since birth.
mhm,
So I thank it from that point of view. I'm not a vegan anymore, and not strictly speaking a full vegetarian either, although my consumption of animal produce is very, very low. Um,
mhm.
in the book on the food chapter, I quote Michael Pollan, the Harvard professor and New York Times columnist, who famously said, here's a manifesto for eating: eat food, mainly plants, not too much, which is, I love the simplicity of that. But what it means is and it's all explained in that chapter. What it means is you have to make up your mind what passes for food
Yeah.
in your opinion.
Yeah.
And if your idea of food is McDonald's, well, good luck to you. I'm not telling you not to do it. I'm just
Mhm.
saying be aware and look into it. So for me, if you're going to eat meat, be aware that there are some seriously bad practices in the rearing
Of course.
food animals. And you might be ingesting things that you really don't want in your system, like hormones, and antibiotics are not even deemed fit for human consumption. And
Mhm.
that's all getting into the food supply. So for me, much, much more important than, I mean, like if want to talk about keto, I could mention my colleague, Sarah Myhill, okay,
Yeah.
whom I have
Yeah.
a huge amount of respect for. And I actually asked her on one occasion, what if you're a vegetarian? How do you manage what you're teaching? And I thought she was just going to say, nobody ought to be a vegetarian today. But she didn't. She very, very graciously said, yes, this is a bit of a problem. It's possible, but it's a lot of hard work. And I really appreciated that
Mm.
coming from her. And I know that she's completely passionate about that sort of that dietary strategy, and with good reason. She's got a head on her. She's a highly scientific lady, and I respect it a lot. For me and for some other people, it doesn't work out too well. Um, I, with meat, I just don't like it. I mean, I've
Mm.
been not eating it for what, God, 50 years.
50
So
years.
it doesn't really work for me, and I probably would drop a few pounds. But actually, one thing about me is my digestion is completely. I'm comfortable with what I do. I do tend to go for low carb options. My diet is mainly vegetables.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I feel okay. My digestion is comfortable. I'm regular. I have enough energy. It's working for me.
Oh, well, it's a lovely book. You've got lots of resources in there. You've got a bibliography, and what many of these books don't nowadays have, because they've been put together too fast, is an index. There's an index there as well, so you can sort of go
Yeah.
searching for what you're particularly interested in. So really, really wonderful. Very, very helpful. Do you want to just mention where you would suggest people go to buy it?
I would say come to my website, which
Can
you
you
could.
just give us the, we'll put it in the show notes, but just tell
Yeah,
us what the
it's
website is.
just thenaturalcenter.com. Spell
Okay.
center the English way, not the American way.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Thenaturalcenter.com. But I'm actually nearly out of them because there's been a bit of a rush in the pre-Christmas, so
Oh,
I
oh,
won't be
oh.
stocking up till the new year. You can get them direct from Aeon, the publisher, and I gather you can get them through
Can,
Amazon.
can, can you just spell Aeon as well for those?
Aeon, Aeon.
Okay.
Aeon Books is the publisher, but you can
Yeah.
also get them from CNM, from the College of Naturopathic Medicine. They have stocks as well.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And do you have another one that you're brooding on
Yeah,
already?
well, brooding on. I'm writing fast and furious actually, and
Really?
I'm a little bit behind. I've got to submit the manuscript by the end of the year.
Oh, what's that on?
Well, it's called The Medicine of Plants,
Mhm.
and it's not about herbal medicine as such. Well, it kind of is, but it isn't. It's not. That's not the focus of it. It's not a how to do herbal medicine or how to keep yourself well with plants. It's an exploration of how hugely important plants are on the planet and how we miss that It
Oh,
starts off by saying there's a thing called plant blindness. People move around in their environments, and there are plants all over the place, but we don't look at them, we don't see them, we don't interact with them.
mhm.
And it's got a few things in it. I mean, I like to be a bit controversial, and so I have taken on the whole climate change net zero idea because
Wow.
it occurs to me that if you're talking about net zero, i.e., carbon, well, plants thrive on carbon, and we
Yes.
are carbon. So what are
Well,
we trying to do?
yeah,
If erase ourselves, erase,
yeah.
and there's been other scientific information coming up saying that one of the consequences of high atmospheric carbon is the regreening of the planet, which apparently is the untold story about climate change,
Mm.
which is, and in the light of the deforestation of the Amazon and various other places, you can't really um, ignore the fact that it might actually be quite a good thing to have more plants, more green, because apart from anything else, they give us oxygen. So it's kind of the book functions on many levels. It does function as a rationale for herbal medicine. It functions as a rationale for um, just having plants in our lives, and it introduces a subject that's very close to my heart, and that is plant spirit medicine,
Absolutely.
which is on a, kind of, we might be talking about essences like the Bach flower remedies, for example. We might be talking
Yeah.
about, but we might also be talking about how plants can function as our allies in very non-physical ways, shall we say.
Right. Well, are there any circles or round tables where people can learn more about this directly from you?
Not at the moment, no. We'll see. I mean, the book won't be out until next year, and once that happens, I'm going to be
Yeah.
setting up a few
Because I
things.
remember with your iridology book, you did set up some
I
nice
did.
sort of
That's right. Yeah,
learning circles.
I'll be
Yeah.
setting up some workshops. Yes, for sure.
And where will people be able to find out
They'll be
about those?
advertised on my website and through Aon, I think.
Oh,
Yeah,
fantastic.
and also through
Fantastic.
the GNC. Why not?
Yes, let's do that. Okay. Well, this is going to go out as a sort of happy Christmas to everybody or seasonal greetings. So, wishing everybody a wonderful 2026. And
Absolutely. I
yeah,
want to say one of the things about plants that I bring forward in the medicine of plants is that being involved with plants keeps you close to the natural cycles of the planet, in particular the seasons. And this season, I don't often use what I call the C word for what's just about to happen, i.e. Christmas. It's not that I'm not into that at all. I'm where religion is concerned, I'm very eclectic, but I prefer solstice and then Yuletide.
mhm,
Solstice and the 4 days that come after that, which
mhm.
is Yuletide, and then Christmas Day is actually the return of the light. And I just love that whole concept of what we're doing at this time of the year. We're just taking time out, reflecting and reconnecting. So I wish you a happy reflection and reconnection,
Oh,
everyone.
that's lovely. Thank you. Wonderful words to finish with. And we look forward to hearing about your new book in the new year. Thank you very much. Bye bye.